Ladies and gentlemen, we're lucky to have one of the great minds of our nation tonight interviewing President Perez. Born in Toronto, David Frum has enjoyed an illustrious career as a journalist, author, and political advisor. David is a contributing editor at Newsweek and The Daily Beast. He's a CNN contributor and is the author of the new book, Patriots, a satirical Washington novel which has just been released. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to David Frum.
Great speech tonight. You are on fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the main attraction. Please rise. It is my extraordinary privilege to introduce President Shimon Peres and share this stage with him. While he's walking, I would say Shimon Peres is an icon, a political giant, and a pillar of history.
Thank you.
Before I leave the stage, I will complete my duties by telling you just a couple of things. To name all of Shimon Peres' achievements is impossible. He's the former Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance, Minister of Information, Minister of Transport and Communication, Deputy Prime Minister, and now President of Israel. At 24, he was appointed head of Israel's Navy by Ben-Gurion. He procured arms for the Jewish state when it had none. He oversaw the reorganization of the IDF after the Yom Kippur War. He initiated Israel's nuclear research program. He's a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize and the US Presidential Medal of Freedom. He's a widely published and respected author. He has been a diplomat and a warrior, a statesman and a farmer. When pondering how I would introduce a man who has influenced the history of the world, I asked a beautiful and well-placed friend in Tel Aviv who has worked for President Peres if she could provide me with some special insight, something that does not appear in his official bio. Here's what she wrote. He's the world's greatest charmer, and he still melts more women's hearts than Johnny Depp. Yeah. I wish I could be here.
Good evening, friends. Mr. President, welcome to Toronto. There is not an empty seat in this great hall. Thank you. That is a personal tribute to you. It's a statement about the commitment of this city to the state of Israel. I think it also says something about the extraordinary work of UJA Federation here in Toronto. What an amazing organization this is. I've had the privilege of working so often with Ted Sikulski. What an amazing job, how wisely Toronto invests its money, how important it is that this community has been there through some very difficult times, always for the state of Israel. And thank you. Thank everyone in this hall. I thank your families and your friends and all of those who couldn't get seats tonight. Let me begin by asking you about the message you have brought with you on this trip. You have been urging a policy of caution on action toward Iran. Many people in this hall will be fearful that the minutes are running very short to safely deal with this problem. What would you say to them, and how do you explain your point of view on this question?
You mean on the Iranian question? Well, I think that Iran is a menace not only to Israel, but to the rest of the world. I don't think we have to monopolize it to ourselves. And as long as the United States is ready to lead the attempt to stop the Iranians from getting nuclear weapons, it's the best thing that can happen. So I think we have to go together. The United States, Canada, the coalition of forces who do believe that Iran or the Iranian present leadership with a nuclear bomb is a real danger to humanity. And they say, let's do it, and we agree to it by economic sanctions, political pressure, yet all the options are on the table. I think it's a reasonable policy, and we have to go along and be part of this coalition.
How do you assess the bite of the economic sanctions on Iran? Are they working? Are they sufficient in themselves to stop Iran's progress toward a nuclear weapon?
You know, there were sanctions that were successful and there were sanctions that failed. So I can't give you a definite answer. For example, South Africa, that was on her way to get a nuclear bomb, stopped it because of sanctions. So happened to Libya. It's better to start with non-military efforts than go straight to war. It's reasonable. And the fact that Iran is ready now to enter negotiations, I don't know how serious they are, shows that it has an impact upon them. So on that, I think everybody agrees that let's start with a coalition, let's start with non-military ways, while telling the Iranians if it won't achieve the goal, there are other options on the table.
At the end of 2011, there were a series of explosions at Iranian military facilities, 3, I believe. And there were also, over the course of 2010 and 2011, half a dozen or so cases of Iranian scientists meeting violent ends. This year, there has been no such action. Does that tell us that the Iranians are getting better at counter-espionage, or does that tell us that some other policy is in the works?
Well, you're talking about secret stories. How can I know the truth?
Well, perhaps you can tell us this. Every Jew has a worry meter about Israel, and it is always moving somewhere between 6 and 10, never below 6. I think many of the people here tonight would like to know, where should they set their worry meter right now?
What is the highest? 10? 10.
Let me ask you about some of your nearer neighbors. The Arab Spring, the very word spring conjures up hope, promise, love. The Arab Spring looks like it may not have so much hope and love in it. How do you assess the Israeli relationship with Egypt? Many of the people in this room have accepted peace with Egypt as a fact of Israeli strategic life for a long time. Is that peace likely to hold, or is it in danger?
I believe it's likely to hold. It's to the interest of Egypt. The real problem of the Middle East is not the political issue, but the poverty, the lack of food, the lack of jobs, the lack of hope. You can name it spring or any other name, it doesn't matter. What really happened in Egypt and the rest of the Arab world is that a young generation that was equipped with new communication systems and the capacity to see things around their own horizons start asking themselves, what's wrong? Why are we the only country on earth that doesn't have employment, doesn't have food, has corruption, has a dictatorship? And they started the revolt. They knew more what they are against than what they are for. That was their problem. They have achieved a little bit. One thing they have achieved, I believe, is today it's very uncomfortable to be a dictator in the Middle East. Once it was a good job, no more. And the other thing is, they introduced a little bit of transparency. But when it came to elections, the old foxes ate up the young chickens. They weren't organized. They didn't have parties, nor any other force. And the religious part of it was very strong. There were hundreds of and thousands of qadis every Friday preaching around. Now, religion is not an economic answer. You can be a Muslim, you can be Jewish, you can be Christian. But you have to answer the real problems of life, the real questions. The Muslim brothers were very good as long as they were not a government, and they didn't have to answer the real questions. But now they're coming, and they have to answer. From very simple questions, for example, one of the important economic branches in Egypt was tourism. If they will not permit tourist ladies to wear a bikini, they won't have tourism. They won't have investment, they don't have. The reserves are down, disappearing. It's on the verge of almost a catastrophe. Now I, nor you, I believe, would like to see them down to earth. We would like to see a flourishing Egypt. You know, Israel is an island in a stormy ocean. And as islanders, we know that more than the island can pacify the ocean can storm the island. So you like to see them better off. But for the time being, they don't have a plan how to escape poverty, how to have a better Egypt. And I believe that the disappointment that the Muslim brothers will bring will awake again the young generation.
Well, you have been famous for your optimism about the possibilities of economic cooperation between Israel and its neighbors. And at times, maybe headier times than today, you have even suggested some kind of European Union model for the Eastern Mediterranean. Those hopes don't look very promising today. But as you look forward, how do you assess what we can expect?
I think today the same way. The problems are economic, not political. I mean, Israel is not the real problem of the Arab world. The real problem is backwardness, old-fashioned. We have a new age they didn't enter. And you know, the religious are justifying many of the mistakes that makes the Arabs a poor land, or a poor people. For example, the fact they discriminate women doesn't permit them to escape poverty. If half of the people, the women, are out of play in the national interest, if women are not being educated, the children are becoming the victims of the lack of education. And when the children are ignorant, they cannot really participate in a very competitive world of today. You know, in Egypt, 41% in the 21st century, 41% of the Egyptians don't know how to read and write, my God. You know, President Obama asked me, who is against democracy in the Middle East? I told him the husbands.
Well, speaking of President Obama, it's now more than 6 months, I think almost a year, since he said that the Syrian dictator Assad had to go. And Assad didn't listen. He's still there. How do you assess this situation? Are you nervous about the character of the rebellion against Assad? Do you prefer the devil you know to the devil you don't? And if you want to see change, what are the instrumentalities that could make change real?
Well, I prefer to be an optimist than a nervous person. Nervousness doesn't help you in any way. I think it's the end of Assad, of the Assad family. They are 40 years running Syria in a very cruel manner. The young Assad is as cruel as his father, but not as wise as him. And he killed already so many people. He will not be forgiven. But what may bring them down, strangely enough, is the economic situation. War is very expensive, and Syria is not a very rich country. And in fact, there is a sort of sanctions already against them. He won't be able to hold a very long period of time. And then I must say I have much admiration for the revolting people of Syria. They have shown courage. They are being killed daily. They continue to protest. It requires courage. I think the problem of the American position and the European position, they're afraid there is a lack of alternative. Now, if you have a poor alternative, what does it matter? It cannot be worse, and it's not in their hands. I can't tell you if it will take days or weeks or months, but he is not serving his people, and he's killing his own children. He won't be forgiven.
Israel has now formed a new coalition government. You were the co-author of the grandest political coalition Israel has ever seen. Based on your experience in the 1980s, what advice would you give the managers of this new government to ensure stability and success?
If the government will work for peace and adopt the right policy vis-à-vis Iran, this will be the test of it. You don't judge a government by the numbers. So I think that Israel is facing real problems and has to make real decisions. And I thought under those circumstances, it's always better to have the largest possible coalition that you can.
And what is your view of the role of these very small religious parties? Do you think it is necessary to rewrite election rules so as to reduce the influence of those parties?
I don't think so. I think we don't have to submit all of their demands. We have to separate between religion and politics. I mean, a religious group that becomes political, it creates a problem for their own selves, because religion is spiritual. Political is something else. It's material. It's down to earth. And I think that by having such a large coalition, the demands of every party will lose a little bit of its bargaining power. And I believe we have to respect the moral call. You know, Judaism was never a church, an administration or an industry. Judaism is a moral call. It's a faith. And in between the Lord and heaven and the man on earth, there is no intermediary. It's a direct link. And now I think we have to respect the religious, not to attack them. I don't believe that attacking is a good policy. You have to have patience. And I think they themselves begin to understand that they have to go to work, and the excuse from serving their country militarily or nationally is over. I think this government will change it.
The second Intifada, after the Camp David peace talks, was a shattering experience for many North American Jews. It caused many to question whether peace with the Palestinians was ever achievable, whether there was any constituency on the Palestinian side for an enduring peace. How do you estimate today the feeling among the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leadership, recognizing that the people don't always control the leadership? Do you have vestiges of optimism left?
Oh, yes. Look, peace is a process. It's not just one decision you take. When you look at the process, you can see that at least with the Palestinians on the West Bank, we have established a pragmatic, reasonable relationship. I mean, there is an economic peace. The Palestinians are building their own economy, their own institutions. As a matter of fact, they're already 3 years almost without violence. And we have to conclude this process by making a formal peace. I think it's achievable. Now, to make peace is very complicated because you think that you negotiate only with the opponents. You have to negotiate with your own people to start with. Because the people say, yes, we are for peace. Yes, we understand that to make peace, you have to make concessions, to pay a price. Why the hell do you pay so much? Why the hell you give away so much? Why do you trust them? You are a poor negotiator. You don't know how to negotiate. Now there's no way to measure it. If it's too much, too little. And peace is not a perfection. Everything which is made of a couple has its own problems. When you have two, you cannot win. You have to compromise. And it's very difficult for people to compromise all the time. You know, so the people themselves have to understand that it has a real cost. There are two things in life that you cannot achieve unless you close your eyes a little bit. And this is love and peace. If you'll open your eyes, my God, there are so many problems. And that is true. That is true about us and true about the Palestinians. So the way to negotiate, and then you have the press that is following you, criticizing the government. Why are you giving up? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are they shooting? Why are they misbehaving? And you have to negotiate discreetly and take a real decision. And I think today the gap that remains between us and the Palestinians was very much narrowed. Most of the things we reached an agreement, first of all, inside Israel. It's for the first time there is an Israeli consensus that the real solution should be based on two states. This was always the main problem in the Israeli politics. Today, right and left, most of them agree, that instead of having a binational state, which will mean an ongoing conflict forever, better to have two independent states that live in peace and understanding.
How do you know that an independent state in the West Bank wouldn't shoot rockets into Ben Gurion Airport?
If they'll shoot rockets, they'll get back rockets. And I don't think they love rockets. Look, there are many poor examples, but there are some good examples too. The most complicated and longest frontier we have is with Jordan. Jordan is an Arab country, and the better part of Jordan are Palestinians. And we made peace, no rockets, no shooting. This is the most quiet border, the best relationship, because it is to the interest of the Jordanians to keep quiet, as it is to the interest of the Palestinians. The Palestinians until now never had an experience of statehood. They never had a state. And when you don't have a state, you talk very much, and you do too little. It's only now they are beginning to build an economy, and they have a taste of building, not just of talking. They have trained a force with the Israeli agreement, with the support of the United States, Canada, other countries. They have a force of themselves, and this force, like in Jordan, cooperate with our force to prevent terrorism. Now look, there is nothing which is totally definite. Take the United States of America, the most powerful country on earth. All of a sudden, you have the 9/11, 15 gentlemen, so to speak, caught the American planes, killed 3,000 people in the heart of America. And since 9/11, the Americans have spent already $1 trillion to fight terror. And you take part in it, in the coalition. In Afghanistan, there is a Canadian force. And in Iraq. So to say that you can solve all the problems just by making a wish is a little bit too simplistic. But if you'll take Jordan as an example, and not Gaza, why shouldn't we follow the positive example instead of being all the time worried about the failure?
Do you think that the settlement, the construction of settlements that has taken place over many years and under many different governments is unduly provocative? And do you think it makes sense to distinguish between settlements outside the Greater Jerusalem area and inside the Greater Jerusalem area?
First of all, I don't see any sense to criticize the past. If there is one thing that you cannot change, it is the past. So you have to take the situation as it is and find an agreement, taking in consideration that you have settlements. And I think there were some indications how to solve it. For example, by having 3 concentrations on the West Bank where the settlers can go and live in. There are many other solutions. You have to use creativity in that case.
Should construction stop?
There is an agreement that we are not building any more new settlements. The argument is about the existing settlements, if to enlarge them or not. Now here, the Palestinians must be reasonable and understand that you cannot stop life. If you have a settlement and children are being born, you have to take care of the children. And if a couple is married, you have to provide them with homes. So this is the argument about building new settlements. The previous government, and I think the present government, agreed that we have to stop.
There is a large Palestinian population who are citizens of Israel, Israeli Arabs. There has been in recent years increasing worry in Israel about the loyalty of this population to the state. What would you say about this group of people? You are president of all the citizens of Israel, and yet Israel is also a state with a Jewish identity and Jewish loyalties.
Look, a government is a government of all the people, not just the Jewish people. So it's a Jewish state. And we have to take care and be fair. You have had problems in Canada between the 2 languages and the 2 cultures, and it was very close to separation. You have shown patience, and while having different music, you are able to compose an accepted melody, which sounds very nice today, French and English. It's not a natural marriage, as you know. Now, we have, Israel is today 7 million people. 1.5 million are Arabs. They won't become Zionists, and I wouldn't ask them to become Zionists. They have to be good citizens with the same rights and the same obligations. They feel that they are discriminated, the Arabs, the Israeli Arabs. There is nothing in our law that permits discrimination. But in fact, they are discriminated economically because the Jewish settlements and towns are in a better shape than the Arabs. There are reasons for it. We have introduced high-tech, for example. They did not. As an Israeli, not only as a president of Israel, I'm asking myself, well, let's do something to overcome it. Why wouldn't we introduce high-tech among the Arabs as well? Now, if you live the old way only on land, you are very poor and you have large families. And the poverty comes from the size of the families and the size or the height of the salaries and wages. So what we are now trying to do is to introduce a higher standard of living, high-tech, And by the way, you know, there are already 60,000 academicians among them, among the Arabs. And if an Arab is an academician, is a different person, like all of us. There is one place in Israel where we have total equality, and that is in the hospitals. There is no hospital in Israel that doesn't have Arab doctors, Arab nurses, Arab patients. And when a patient is being operated, and is Jewish, he doesn't know who holds the knife, an Arab doctor or Israeli doctor. In the hospitals, you have total equality and total peace. I don't know why when people become healthy again, they forget how to live together. But it shows it's possible.
Let me ask you about relations between Israel and the Jews of the diaspora. Not so much in Canada, but very much in the United States. You are hearing a chorus of voices, not numerous, but loud and maybe influential, that say it is time for American Jews, to way lesser extent Canadian Jews, to be a pressure on Israel to make greater concessions. Some of these groups claim to be Zionists, some are frankly post-Zionist or non-Zionist or anti-Zionist. What do you think is the appropriate role of Jews in the diaspora as they review the policies of Israel and its government?
First of all, I think that Judaism is made of so many variations that it's almost un-Jewish just to have one way of life. But what I think that we have really to compose a new vision for the future and for our children. We cannot hang just on the past and just on the memories. We have to relate to a new age. We have to build as ancient as our 10 Commandments, but modern as nanotechnology. And there are no contradiction between the two. I believe the present unifying basis of Jewish relations, half of the Jewish people are on the American land, half of them are in Israel, the larger half, doesn't matter. And I think we have to have a common vision, which is based on 3 pillars. One, to take the moral code as the superior guide of our life. You know, we didn't build great cathedrals and great pyramids. We have one document, which is 3,500 years old, has only 172 words, the 10 Commandments, and this is the only document that didn't need any correction. It's up to date. So let's take it as our guide wherever we are. The second point is the Jewish people being discriminated and exiled. They have had to live on their brains and talents. So it became part of our DNA. It's not by accident that 25% of the Nobel Prize laureates are Jewish. And, you know, when I'm being asked what is the greatest contribution of the Jewish people to the world, my answer is dissatisfaction. A good Jew cannot be satisfied. If he begins to be satisfied, I wonder if he's Jewish. We really want to change everything, to improve everything. And that is the call of our mothers. Our mothers made us intelligent. Because when the boy comes home, the mother asks him, "My boy, did you ask today a good question?" And intelligence is part of our DNA.
But when does it go too far? Can you give us a guideline for these American Jewish groups in the diaspora who criticize Israel, who say we're dissatisfied, as you said, dissatisfied questions, but is there a point at which it goes too far? How do we know when we're approaching that point?
Look, they can only influence the Israeli decisions are making by the Israeli parliament. There is nothing wrong.
They can influence American public opinion against saying that this
We are not
comment that is against Israel is now validated by the fact that it has
We are
been...
not in a bad shape. We got the support in the United States of 60 or 70%. I don't know any other nation that has it. and we have support of the Christians and non-Christians. The fact they are criticizing, yes, it's part of democracy. You work for a newspaper. Newspapers have to criticize. You know, you mentioned previously Bashevis Singer in our talk before it. Bashevis Singer once asked, why do the Jewish people speak in two languages? The holy language, Hebrew, and the daily language, Yiddish. They say it's needed because in one language, the holy language, they praise the Lord. In the second language, they argue with him, Yiddish. And it's nothing wrong about it. I don't see any catastrophe in it. I'm ready to take criticism and answer it nicely. I don't lose my sense of convictions or humor, and I see nothing wrong. And the third point, by the way, one is the moral call. The second is the thirst for knowledge. And the third is to make really peace. We don't want to see any other people suffering. We never attacked anybody. We never threatened anybody. We have had to defend ourselves, and we did a good job.
I'm conscious that we have limited time with you, and that we are coming close to the end, but I will try to slip in 3 questions more. We have seen, as of today, as experts tell us, that the military and intelligence relationship between Israel and the United States has never been closer than it is now. And yet we have seen a certain chill between the civilian branches of the Israeli and American governments. How chilly is it? And how worried should we be? And what can be done?
Even if it's chilly, it's still very warm. Don't make a mistake. I think the attitude to Israel in America, as well as in Canada, has very deep roots. It is not just a passing expediency in our relationship. I mean, it goes deep into the Bible. It goes deep into democracy. It goes high into science. So, I mean, maybe from time to time we don't have 100% of agreement. And occasionally we don't agree with America, so America has the right to disagree with us as well. We must be mutual in that. But basically, I heard the remarks previously about our situation in the world. I am not sure. I think Israel is in a good shape. If you ask which other country enjoys so much friendship and admiration, there are not many like Israel. Let me explain what I'm saying. You know, for 1,000 years, the greatest anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic organization was the Vatican. Can you compare the relations between the Vatican and Israel today with the Middle Ages, with Auto de Fe? My God. We have a real good relationship. All of a sudden, the Christians are feeling they're being discriminated by Muslims, not by us. So it's, you know, it's 1.5 billion people. It's quite a group of people. Then take another small organization by the name of China. China admires Israel very much. They think that our fathers were not Moses or Abraham. They think the real fathers of Jewish life were Albert Einstein, Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud. And it's as if you have such an intelligent group of parents. You must be very able people. And, you know, there is an admiration. We, for example, the Chinese are very much interested in the Israeli agriculture. And it made an excellent name. I don't feel that China is hostile. Well, it's another 1,300,000,000 people, you know. The same goes with India. It's another 1,200,000,000. It's quite a group, you know. And then we have a support in the United States. We have support in Canada. Even in Europe, there are supporters, and there is old anti-Semitism. But I don't feel so lonely. And I think anti-Semitism is a non-Jewish sickness. Jews cannot be anti-Semites. And it's a problem for themselves. And we are different. People don't understand. You know, we celebrate now the 64th anniversary. And really, I want to thank the community of Toronto, which is so great from the early days, and so constant and contributing and loyal to this very day. You know, it's something. Once Arafat told me, would Arabs help us the way the Jews helped you? We would have a state already. And he's probably right. But I'm looking 64 years ago. My God. 64 years ago, we didn't stand a chance. We were a lost case, a doubt. I remember those days, you know. We were all told 650,000 Jewish people facing 40 million Arabs. They have had 7 armies. We didn't have an army. They have planes and tanks and guns. We have had rifles and machine guns. By the way, the first guns we got was from Canada.
We met many of the first pilots, too.
Right. Numerically, we didn't stand a chance. Now, not only were we outmanned and outgunned, but we had a tiny little piece of land, all told. You know, Israel, people don't realize it, is just 1 promille geographically from the Arab expanse. We are just 1,000th part of the Middle Eastern land. Now the land we have wasn't so great, you know. It was an unfriendly land, swamps in the north, deserts in the south, and the land was not particularly fertile. Then we didn't have water. When I see your water, my God, I'm so jealous. We have 1 river and 2 lakes. The river is the Jordan River, which is rich in fame, but dull in water. It's not a river for irrigation. Then we have 2 lakes. One is dead, the other is dying. Then we didn't have any natural resources, nothing whatsoever, neither oil, no gold, no silver. When I look at that time, we didn't stand a chance. We're supposed to be overpowered, overthrown. And if you ask me, what happened? I think the fact that we have had nothing made us a great people. Because when you have nothing, you turn to the real source of strength, and that is the human being. Israel is a case where the people enrich the land more than the land has enriched the people.
Well, this is a... This is a wonderful place to set up my last question then to you. Israel is 64, and from your point of view, that makes it on the young side of middle-aged. As you look ahead, when Israel reaches its full maturity on its 88th birthday.
Why? Why wouldn't we remain young? Why are you in a hurry?
Look forward, what do you see 20, 25 years from now?
Well, I think Israel will live more and more on science. We are a startup nation. We have to be a brainy nation. We are too small to be average. For small people, the only option is to be excellent. Otherwise, we cannot compete. If you don't have numbers, you have to have quality. So I believe Israel will really live on science, on daring, on being dissatisfied, on trying to improve, we shall come to the real origin of the Jewish people, which is called Tikkun Olam, to have a better world. We are not working just for ourselves, we are trying really to contribute, to make the world a better place and the people a better people. And I think we shall, the economy is no longer national, so is security. But culture is national. When you have a language, you have a culture. And Israel is the only country in the Middle East that her children are speaking the language of their fathers. The children are speaking the language of our prophets. There's no other country in the Middle East. The Italians don't speak the Roman language. The Egyptians don't speak the Egyptian language. Nobody, we are the only one. So the culture holds us and we hold the culture. We were a people of the books, as they say. Now we are a people of the Facebook. But
and you,
yes.
And you have launched a major project with Facebook.
Yes. Look, let me, though you don't have time, let me say one word. I visited with the Facebook people, and I saw this young boy, 27 years old, Zuckerberg. And I thought, you know, this young boy made a greater revolution than Lenin and Stalin. In order to impose communism upon the Russians, those gentlemen killed 30 million Russians. They built prisons, they arrested people, they took away their liberty. And what happened? Nothing. Communism is bankrupt. This single boy, without an army, without a party, without a fortune, look what he did. Revolutionized our life and still goes on. So I believe the force of ideas is greater than the strength of armies. You have to have an army. You shouldn't be naive. Because if you become weak, you'll become a victim. But don't be satisfied just with force. Stalin asked, how many divisions does the Pope has? Okay, he doesn't have division, but he's alive. Communism is dead. So, I mean, I see Israel as an orientation of the human strengths, of the human potential, of the faith, of the morality. I'm not sure that we shall become perfect, but I'm sure we shall try to be perfect. Trying to be perfect is a sort of perfection, even if you don't achieve it right away. So I feel at home when I come here. And not only here, I can see other people as well. The Pope, we are befriended even before he became a Pope, told me, look, we are traveling the same journey for a long time. I told him, Your Highness, Your Holiness, but our ticket was so expensive, my God. But you know what? It cost us a great deal, but we're alive, and we keep our identity, and we don't lose our spirit. And we can tell our children that we are fighting for something which is deep and meaningful. And they can continue to do so, not necessarily with arms, but with priorities. And we don't think other people are enemies, nothing whatsoever. The enemy is the evil judgment, not a person. And I believe that now with modern technology and science and brain research, we can improve the people too. So I see a lot of work. You asked me if I'm an optimist. I'm thinking to myself, you know, optimists and pessimists are passing away the same way, but they live differently. Why should you live all your life as a pessimist? Tell me, what is the sense? And I'm today almost 89 years old, and I feel a heavy license. I feel a heavy license to be optimistic. And that is my advice to everybody. As I said in you mentioned the Facebook, be my friend for peace. I invite all of you.
Well, if there is anyone here tonight who is not yet your Facebook friend, I think they will go home and rectify that. You've been very generous with your time to the City of Toronto and the Jews of Toronto. Mr. President, we thank you for honoring us with your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You're very kind. And thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.